Chijioke reached a low, wooden warehouse at the edge of town. Obina crouched behind a bush, holding his breath. He watched as Chijioke unlocked the door and stepped inside. The moment Obina saw what lay inside, his stomach turned, and a cold rage coursed through him. The crates were filled with birds, but not chickens. Their feathers were dark, their beaks sharp and curved. The smell hit him first, pungent and foul. Vultures. Obina's hands trembled as he whispered, "It can't be, vultures." The sun had barely crested the horizon, painting the Ogbo market in shades of gold and orange, when Obina Okoye arrived with his crates of chicken. The smell of spices clung to his clothes, a mix of pepper, garlic, and the faint aroma of fresh herbs. Obina had always believed that good food began with good preparation. Every morning, he marinated some chickens in secret family recipes, ensuring they were tender and flavorful. Today was no different. He arranged them on the store, cleaning and organizing with the precision of a man who knew every corner of his kingdom. Morning, Obina called Mama Ngozi, a stout woman with a sharp tongue but a soft heart for loyal vendors. "I'll take 5 spiced chickens today. Make sure they're the ones you promised yesterday." Obina chuckled, his dimples showing. "Mama Ngozi, you worry too much. The best chickens are always for you." He packed them carefully into her basket, handing them over with a warm smile. From behind the store, Ijeoma, his wife, watched silently. Her hands were busy wiping the wooden counter, but her eyes sparkled with pride. "You've built a kingdom here," she said softly. "No one touches your reputation." Obina shook his head with a modest smile. Ogbon market knows quality when they see it. And people know honesty when they meet it. By mid-morning, his store was buzzing. Customers jostled for space, the clatter of coins mixing with laughter and bargaining voices. Even the younger vendors whispered, "Obina's chickens always sell out first." Obina loved these moments, the energy, the faces of satisfied customers, the joy of serving. But he also understood the fragile nature of success. In a market like Ogbon, nothing stayed unchallenged for long. Little did he know, across the narrow lane, a rival was preparing to test that very truth. A new stall had appeared overnight, painted bright yellow with a sign that read, "Chijioke's cheap chicken, fresh and affordable." A week passed since Obina had sensed the faint shadow of competition. He thought it was nothing more than idle worry until one morning, the truth hit him like a heavy stone. Across the narrow lane, where the sun barely reached at that hour, a small, bright yellow stall had appeared. A young man, tall and lean with a sly grin, was setting up neatly arranged crates of chicken. "Fresh chicken. Cheaper than anywhere else," the man shouted, his voice cutting through the usual morning chatter. Obina froze for a moment, a bead of sweat rolling down his temple. He squinted at the stall. Everything looked normal, perfectly plucked chickens, neatly arranged, but something about the man's smile felt wrong, slick, too confident. "Who is this?" muttered a regular customer as she passed by, stopping mid-step. "Obina, why is this man selling chicken cheaper than yours?" Obina forced a smile, but inside, worry gnawed at him. "Perhaps it's a one-time deal," he whispered to Ijeoma as she arranged his remaining stock. By mid-morning, the difference was obvious. Where Obina's usual crowd once surged, now curious eyes and wallets gravitated toward the new store. Mothers whispered to their children, young men poked at the bright sign, and even the older traders shook their heads. Obina tried to maintain his calm. "Welcome, everyone. Fresh, spiced chicken, cooked to perfection," he called, louder than usual. But it felt hollow. People paused, glanced at him, then walked on. Ijeoma noticed his tension. "Obina, relax. You've built trust. People will return." Don't let a new face scare you. Trust. Obina muttered, staring at the yellow store. Trust doesn't matter when the price is lower. If I try to match his rate, I'll be selling at a loss. Later that day, a group of market women approached him, whispering, Obina, your chicken is so expensive now. Did the suppliers increase prices? He shook his head. No, nothing has changed, he said, his voice tight. He watched as they left, some shaking their heads, muttering about unfair prices. That evening, at home, Obina recounted the day's events. His hands trembled slightly as he stirred the stew. I don't understand, Ijeoma, he said, voice low and frustrated. I've tried everything. Customers are gone, my reputation is questioned, and if I reduce prices, I lose money. How is he doing this? Ijeoma put a hand on his shoulder. There must be a secret, she said calmly. He must have cheaper suppliers or another trick. We need to find out, Obina. You can't fight in the dark. Obina's jaw tightened. Then we'll go to the source. I'll find out what he's doing, even if it takes weeks. No one cheats Obina Okoye in his own market. That night, sleep came fitfully. Obina lay awake, imagining the rival store, imagining vultures instead of chickens, even though the thought was absurd. A storm of determination and anxiety raged in his chest. He knew that tomorrow, he would begin watching, learning, waiting. He would not let this thief take what he had built. The market had changed in just a few days. Where laughter and bargaining once filled the air at Obina's store, now there was silence, or worse, whispers of doubt. Why is Obina's chicken so expensive? A young vendor asked, nudging her friend as they passed by. Obina overheard the comment and felt a sting of frustration. He wiped his hands on his apron, trying to stay calm, but inside, a storm brewed. That afternoon, he walked to his supplier's warehouse, determined to find a solution. The sun beat down on him, and the smell of raw meat mingled with dust and sweat. Good afternoon, Uncle Emeka, Obina greeted the supplier, a tall, stern man with a bushy mustache. Afternoon, Obina, Uncle Emeka replied, eyes narrowing. Come for more chickens? Yes, but I was hoping for a better rate, Obina said carefully. I need to compete with a new vendor. My customers are leaving. Uncle Emeka slammed a hand on the counter, making Obina jump. A better rate. Obina, do I steal my chickens for me to sell them cheaper? I give you the best price already. You want me to lose money for you? I'm not asking you to lose money, Obina said, trying to keep his voice steady. I just want to survive. I'm loyal, you know that. Please, if there's any way. No way. You think business is easy? Uncle Emeka barked. You want a miracle, you go pray for it. Obina left the warehouse, shoulders heavy, stomach twisting with frustration. The town had become a maze of suspicion. Suppliers doubted him. Customers questioned him. Even fellow vendors began to whisper. Back at home, Ijeoma noticed his anger and despair. She handed him a cup of tea. You look tired, Obina. But don't give up. There has to be a way to uncover this secret. If he's cheating, we'll catch him. Obina took a long sip, staring into the steaming cup. I will. I must. I can't let him destroy what we've built. Tomorrow, I start watching him. I'll follow him, see where he buys his chickens. Something is not right, I can feel it in my bones. The next morning, Obina arrived at his store earlier than usual, but his mind was elsewhere. Every smile he gave customers was measured, every greeting carefully controlled. He watched Chijioke from a distance, noting his every move, the way he carried crates, how he whispered with certain men, how he occasionally looked over his shoulder with a flicker of nervousness. That night, Obina lay awake, planning. He thinks he's clever, he muttered. But cleverness has limits. And tomorrow, I'll learn the truth. Then, he'll see that no one cheats Obinna Okoye and gets away with it. Obinna had not slept well that night. Every sound in the quiet of his room seemed amplified, every creak of the house, every whisper of the wind against the roof. He replayed the day in his mind, remembering Chijioke's sly grin, the curious glances of customers, and the whispers questioning the price of his chicken. I will find out, Obinna whispered to himself as dawn broke, painting the sky in streaks of orange and pink. No one cheats Obinna Okoye and goes free. He arrived at the market before sunrise, carefully keeping a distance from Chijioke. The young rival moved with confidence, carrying crates as if they were light as feathers. Obinna followed him quietly through winding streets, careful not to be seen. The trail led them away from the crowded market into quieter alleys, past abandoned shops, and into a part of town Obinna barely recognized. The smells changed too: dust, decay, and something sharp and metallic in the air. Chijioke reached a low, wooden warehouse at the edge of town. Obinna crouched behind a bush, holding his breath. He watched as Chijioke unlocked the door and stepped inside. The moment Obinna saw what lay inside, his stomach turned, and a cold rage coursed through him. The crates were filled with birds, but not chickens. Their feathers were dark, their beaks sharp and curved. The smell hit him first, pungent and foul. Vultures. Obinna's hands trembled as he whispered, "It can't be vultures." Inside the warehouse, Chijioke moved confidently, pulling one vulture after another from the crates, pretending to examine them like a chicken seller inspecting fresh stock. "Fresh stock for the market," he muttered to himself, his voice tight but smug. Obinna's mind raced. His rival was a fraud, selling vultures to unsuspecting customers as fresh chicken. No wonder his prices were so low, no supplier would charge him for vultures he scavenged himself. He backed away slowly, careful not to make a sound. Every nerve in his body screamed with anger and disbelief. "This ends soon," he muttered under his breath. "I will expose you, Chijioke, and the whole market will see the truth." Returning home, Obinna could barely eat. His anger mixed with determination, and he paced the small kitchen. "We can't just confront him recklessly," he said to Ijeoma. "If he catches me, he could destroy me further. I need proof, undeniable proof. I need a plan." Ijeoma nodded. "Then plan carefully. Don't rush. Let him expose himself with his own greed." Obinna's eyes glimmered with a mix of fury and resolve. "Tomorrow, I start plotting. One wrong move, and he'll escape. But I will not fail. Not now, not ever." The night stretched long, but Obinna slept with a mind alive, every muscle and thought preparing for the confrontation to come. The morning after his shocking discovery, Obinna woke before the rooster crowed. He sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the wooden floor, his mind racing faster than a hawk over the market rooftops. "He thinks he's clever," Obinna muttered to himself. "Selling vultures as chicken, laughing at everyone who trusted me. But cleverness has limits. I will show him." Ijeoma entered the room quietly, holding a cup of steaming tea. "You look like a man possessed," she said softly, setting it beside him. "I feel possessed," Obinna admitted, rubbing his temples. "I can't just rush in and expose him. If I do, he could destroy the evidence, lie, and turn the crowd against me. I need a foolproof plan." Ijeoma frowned, concern etched in her face. "You've always been careful, Obinna. Don't let anger cloud your judgment." Obinna nodded. "That's why I need proof. Clear, undeniable proof. Then the market itself will witness his crime. I gather witnesses, record everything, and choose the busiest day. The entire town must see the vultures for what they are." He rose and began pacing the room, ideas spilling over each other like runaway chickens. "I need allies. The honest vendors, some trusted customers, even the market guards. And I need timing, when Chijioke is about to sell, when the crowd is largest. If I do this right, it will be impossible for him to deny. Ijeoma poured herself a cup of tea and leaned against the wall. Do you need me to help? Obinna smiled faintly. You'll be my anchor. If I falter, you remind me who I am. And we'll plan the moments carefully, together. That day, Obinna returned to the market under the guise of his usual routine. He smiled at the customers, sold his fresh chickens, and observed Chijioke closely. Every gesture, every glance, every exchange became a piece of the puzzle. He noticed how Chijioke never visited traditional suppliers. He whispered with certain shady men, avoided the sun at certain hours, and carried crates too light for chickens, too heavy for mere decoys. By sunset, Obinna had a complete map of Chijioke's movements and contacts. Sitting at home that night, he spread out his mental notes like a general preparing for war. I will strike when the market is full, he said softly, almost to himself. I will show the truth. And Chijioke, he will not recover from this. Ijeoma smiled faintly, brushing his hand. Be careful. Don't let him see fear in your eyes. Obinna's jaw tightened. Fear? No. I feel anger, yes, but it will fuel me, not control me. Tomorrow, I finalize the plan. And the day after, justice will be served. That night, sleep came in short bursts, dreams haunted by dark feathers and angry customers. But each waking moment strengthened his resolve. The market would see the vultures, and Obinna Okoye's name would shine brighter than ever. The morning sun spilled golden light over Ogbon Market. Birds chirped, vendors shouted their wares, and the air smelled of fresh produce, spices, and anticipation. But for Obinna Okoye, the market felt different today, charged, tense, like a storm about to break. He set up his stall with precision, arranging his spiced chickens, fresh and frozen, each piece gleaming under the sun. His eyes scanned the crowd, noting familiar faces, wary newcomers, and, most importantly, Chijioke. Chijioke strutted confidently at his yellow stall across the lane, flashing his usual sly grin. Fresh chicken. Cheap. By now, he called, waving a hand at the gathering crowd. Obinna's stomach tightened. Today would decide everything. He took a deep breath, then raised his voice, loud enough to carry across the market. Friends. Neighbors. Listen, he shouted. Before you buy chicken anywhere else, look carefully at what you are buying. The crowd paused, curious murmurs rippling through the market. Chijioke's smile faltered for a fraction of a second. What nonsense is this? Chijioke snapped, his voice trembling slightly as he stepped forward. Obinna held up a crate, slowly opening it. The stench hit immediately, drawing gasps from the nearest vendors. Inside, dark feathers and sharp, curved beaks glinted in the sunlight. Vultures. The market erupted. Customers shrieked, stepping back. What is this? Shouted a woman clutching her basket. These are not chickens. Obinna cried, his voice ringing with authority. This man has been selling vultures to you as chicken. Chijioke's face twisted in rage. You dare. You have no proof. This is lies. A few loyal vendors stepped forward. We saw him sneaking into that warehouse, one exclaimed. Obinna is telling the truth. The crowd surged around Chijioke's store, pointing, shouting, demanding answers. The market guards moved in swiftly, grabbing the young man before he could flee. Ijeoma rushed to Obinna, her eyes wide with relief. You did it, she whispered. Obinna nodded, exhaustion and triumph washing over him. Justice is served, he said, gazing at the chaotic scene. And the market knows the truth now. Cheaters like him have no place here. Some of Chijioke's former customers stared at him in disbelief, muttering apologies to Obinna as they returned to his store. Others shook their heads in anger, realizing how close they had come to being duped. The market had regained its order, but more importantly, Obinna's integrity had been vindicated. The market had never felt so alive. Shouts, gasps, and laughter mixed in a cacophony that seemed to echo across every stall. Chijioke, now held firmly by the market guards, struggled and shouted, but no one paid him much attention. His customers had already turned back to Obinna, realizing the betrayal they had narrowly escaped. Obinna stood tall beside his wife, Ijeoma, feeling a strange mix of exhaustion and triumph. Sweat dripped from his brow, but his smile was steady, calm, and unshakable. "This is what happens when greed overtakes honesty," Obinna said to the crowd, his voice carrying over the hubbub. "Trust is earned with effort and respect, not lies and deception." One loyal customer stepped forward, shaking his head in disbelief. "Obinna, we trusted you, even when others whispered against you. You were right all along." "I only did what was right," Obinna replied humbly, his eyes scanning the crowd. "It is not about me, but about the market, about honesty, and the people who make it thrive." Chijioke, red-faced and panting, tried one last defiance. "This is not over. You see. A market elder stepped forward, wagging his finger. "Silence. The market speaks, and the market sees. Your greed has exposed you, Chijioke. Learn that deceit cannot stand here." The crowd murmured their agreement. Some laughed, others shook their heads in disgust, and a few clapped for Obinna's bravery. Chijioke's stall was quickly cleared, and rumors spread through the market like wildfire. The man who sold vultures as chicken had been caught, and the hero was Obinna Okoye. Later that evening, Obinna returned home with Ijeoma. The small house smelled faintly of stew and damp earth from the rainy afternoon. He sank into a chair, exhaustion making his bones ache. "You did it," Ijeoma said softly, placing a hand over his. "The market will never forget today." Obinna smiled faintly, letting the tension drain from his shoulders. "Yes, but it was more than just exposing him. It was about showing that integrity matters, even when the world seems unfair. People will always choose honesty over trickery once they see the truth." Ijeoma leaned back, sighing in relief. "And we are safe now. You can finally breathe." Obinna nodded, staring out the window at the fading light over Ogbon Market. "Yes, but I will remain vigilant. There will always be those who think they can cheat the world. And I will be ready." The night deepened, quiet and reflective. For the first time in weeks, Obinna felt peace, knowing that justice had been served and that his name, and his family's honor, were intact. Weeks passed since the dramatic exposure of Chijioke, and Ogbon Market slowly returned to its usual rhythm. But something had changed. The air was lighter, conversations were filled with admiration rather than suspicion, and Obinna's stall became a center of trust and activity. Every morning, the crowd surged to his stall before the sun had fully risen. Mothers, young men, and elders alike came to purchase his spiced, fresh, and frozen chickens, their confidence in him unshakable. "Obinna, you've restored faith in the market," shouted Mama Ngozi, her basket brimming. "I never doubted you, but today, everyone sees the truth." Obinna smiled warmly, dimples showing. "Thank you, Mama Ngozi. It's not about me. It's about honesty, trust, and doing the right thing." Even his suppliers, once skeptical of his prices, returned with cautious smiles. Uncle Emeka, the gruff man who had shouted at Obinna weeks ago, approached him. "I admit, boy. I doubted you," Uncle Emeka said, rubbing his mustache. "But you showed courage and honesty. I'll make sure you get the best chickens from now on." Obinna nodded, feeling a weight lift from his shoulders. "Thank you, Uncle Emeka. I never wanted anyone to doubt me. Only to do right by the market and the people who trust me." Meanwhile, whispers about Chijioke spread beyond the market. Vendors from nearby towns shared the tale of the man who sold vultures as chickens, ensuring no one would be deceived again. Obinna's reputation as the king of Ogbon Market grew, not just for his product, but for his integrity. One evening, after a long day of selling, Obinna and Ijeoma sat outside their small home, listening to the distant sounds of the bustling market. "Look at the market," Ijeoma said softly. "Everything seems right again." "Yes," Obinna replied, his eyes thoughtful. "But this experience taught me more than business. It showed me that people value honesty, and that reputation is worth more than profit." Ijeoma smiled, leaning against him. "And you've earned both." Obinna gazed at the setting sun over Ogbon Market, feeling pride, relief, and renewed determination. His store was thriving, his customers were happy, and the market knew that Obinna Okoye was a man of principle. But deep inside, he also knew that life in the market would always have challenges. Competitors would rise, whispers would spread, and new schemes would emerge. Yet, he felt ready. For today, he had not only restored his store but had also fortified his honor, his name, and the trust of the community.